He is the great David Singer. You can follow him on Twitter at David Singer NFL. He is a talent producer for NFL Network, spent many years working the radio game at ESPN LA, Fox Sports Radio. The list goes on. I'm Bryan Fenley, a national anchor at Fox Sports Radio, and this will be an opportunity to dive into the career of David and how much he's done and how much that he needs to be heralded for what he has done. David, let's start here. With what you do, your responsibilities at the NFL Network, if you were to liken that to a position on the football field, your role, what would that be?
Position on the football field. I would probably, that's a good question. Because what I consider what we do in more, I know we work at NFL Network, but it's more like you know what? It's a guy that's in the air raid offense, a quarterback in the air raid offense. We get requests from PR firms. We go out to PR firms to request different players and coaches, and we distribute throughout the platforms on NFL media, between NFL Network, NFL Digital, NFL Podcast, and we try to we try to make sure that we show off the personalities, show off these players to the fans of all 32 teams.
What is the best executed, proudest interview that you were able to stage, that you were able to put forth in your career? This can go back to your radio days where it was riveting. You had to act quickly to arrange it, and it just worked out perfectly. Something that stands out, maybe a one-on-one interview that really resonates with your memory.
You know what? I'll tell you a funny story that Bob Miller.
Okay, sure.
Bob Miller gets his first NHL. This was at 710 ESPN when the Kings won their first title, Stanley Cup. I knew that Bob Miller and Vin Scully were very close. So Bob Miller came in studio. Was due to come in studio to talk with Mason and Ireland. And I thought what would be great is to surprise Bob Miller. And I called the Dodgers and I told them that Bob Miller was going to join us. And I know how much Vin loves to celebrate others. It's not about him, but it's about, he loves to put other men, other women on pedestals that have done a wonderful job. And I know how much respect he had for Bob. And so the Dodgers got back to me within 15 minutes and they said, Vin's in. Vin wants to do it. And so Bob Miller was on air with us, and I got Vin on the phone and I told Mason Ireland, and they said, Bob, we have a surprise guest for you. And it was Vin. And you could tell how proud Vin was of Bob and how appreciative Bob was that Vin took the time to call in and wish him congratulations on his first Stanley Cup, calling his first Stanley Cup. So it was a sweet moment. And I booked, I can't remember. It was so many, 25, 30 years in the business. I booked a lot of people between Tiger Woods, getting him on. The only way we're going to be able to get him on with Mason and Ireland was to get him on, but they only said you only have time for one question because he's in the middle of he's in the middle of a press tour, like a junket. And so he'll get on the phone for one question. You just have one question and he's going to do it. So, Mason thought, you know what? I'm just going to ask him what was his favorite joke. And I cannot remember the joke to this day that he told. And so Tiger told his favorite joke. And he goes, well, yeah, I got to think of a clean one. But he gave his joke. And I considered that like just trying to be creative, trying to have fun with creativity. And those are the ones I remember most.
Where do you find the most meaning in your work?
I love the chase of being a talent producer. I just, the idea, when they come up with the idea, hatching the idea, pitching the idea, and going through the process of finding that person, getting them on, and putting them on the show. It is, and then to see that on NFL Network is I still get a thrill out of that. You know, I'm 52 years old now, and I still get excited seeing what I did on air. That still drives me to this day, and just I love the interview. I love the art of having an interview and contributing to the interview, coming up with different angles to help the producers and hosts. But we got a great group of producers and hosts at NFL Network that really do a great job, and I'm proud. I'm so proud of the work we do there.
No question, and it is something that we all see as consumers, and those that work in the business really do understand the tireless hours that you put in. We're joined by David Singer of NFL Network. I'm Bryan Fenley, an anchor at Fox Sports Radio. So how many hours a day are you on your phone then? How big is your Rolodex?
You know what? I tell people all the time, my Rolodex it's great. It's a nice size Rolodex. I've been in this business for 30 years. But the most important thing it's not about what your Rolodex in your phone looks like right now. It's about what new ones you could create, what new relationships you can create. And that's what I try to make people realize. Never in an interview, never brag about your Rolodex, because you know what, in this business, everybody's got great Rolodexes. All the successful people got great Rolodexes. Who do you have relationships with? And who are the people that you don't want to ever stop with building relationships, trying to find new ones, trying to go after, and don't go to the same guests all the time. It's that part. And building relationships, not only with the players themselves, it's the reps that are the conduits that basically they trust you, and whatever show you're on, whatever network you work with, they will trust you with their guests, that you'll put them in a good place. That's a huge part of what I do.
Speaking of relationships, when you were looking to get in this business, who were some people that went out of their way and you developed relationships with that ended up being critical to your success, to your trajectory, that to this day you remain forever grateful?
Probably the first person I'd have to say. So back in 1991, I was working as I was going to college. I just graduated college, and I was coaching kids, recreation specialist in Santa Monica, California. And I would listen to my favorite radio station, which was the mighty 690. Okay. Ejiseteria, Baja California, Mexico.
Yes, I remember that.
It was a huge signal that you could hear in LA and San Diego, and up in, like, as Lee Hacksaw Hamilton said, up from the Canadian Rockies.
Yes.
And so I used to be such a big fan of sports radio. That was San Diego, 1991. And I loved it. I loved to listen to Steve Hartman and Chet Forty. But when I graduated, I decided I'm going to call the radio station and
Wow.
just ask them for advice. And so I called the newsroom, and this man, Brad Sesmat, answered the phone. He was an update anchor on 690 and was one of the big voices on the station. You knew Brad Sesmat. So I was like, hi, Brad. David Singer, just graduated Cal State Northridge and just wanted to look for some advice, just to ask you about this business. And he goes, I told him what I did in Cal State Northridge. And he goes, we're actually looking for a high school reporter that can cover the city, the LA city. And, it doesn't pay anything, but you'd be on the air every Friday night with doing a little report. And I'm like, he goes, let me introduce you to this guy, John Quintera. And I called John Quintera, and he goes, hey, why don't you come over to San Diego? Bring your tape. And so I drive down to San Diego, brought my little cassette tape of stuff that I did at Cal State Northridge. And he goes, hey, Dave, sounds good to me. How would you like to be our LA City guy? And so every Friday night at about midnight, I would go on with the LA City report about the big thing is, he goes, I want you to follow Morningside High School, Stace Bozeman, wherever he goes, you go. And I deliver a report basically about the game and some other LA City games. And when the Dodgers started, the baseball season started, I heard and I remember I'm not getting paid at all yet. I'm not getting paid at all, just getting reps. And so the program, I was listening to 690, and there was a report coming from Dodger Stadium, and said, hey, this is Janine Keel from Extra Sports 690, and the Dodgers are up 3-2 over the Reds, and it's the 7th inning, and this is Janine Keel for Extra Sports 690. I'm like, wow, I can do that. Maybe let me call the station. And so I called John Quintera, and I said, hey, I'm willing to work for free. Do you think you could help me out with maybe getting some work over at Dodger Stadium covering games? And they got back to me like a couple hours later and said, here, talk to the program director. Called the program director. And he said, Dave, how would you like to be our Dodger guy?
Wow.
And so I was on the air every 15 minutes from Dodger Stadium, every home game, covering my team that I've loved since I was 6 years old. So that was so John Quintera, Brad Sesmat. When I got to be a producer at Mason, Ireland, Mason basically took me under his wing and said, I was a man on the street. He saved me from, I was selling glamour makeovers in between broadcasting jobs, selling glamour makeovers because I couldn't find a broadcasting job. I worked for Jim Rome for 4 hours a day in 1994. And I went into total debt, $8 an hour, 4 hours a day, just didn't pay the rent. So I decided I sold cell phones for about a month.
Wow.
And then Mason, Ireland started their show. And I found a job selling glamour makeovers to women in different Walmarts and Mervyn's across the Southern California area. And I called them up and I said, hey, I'm David Singer. I did some work for 690, and I know you guys are new to the station. Would you like a man on the street? And they said, you know what? Talk to Steve Mason. Give him a call. And he goes, yeah, let's try you out. My first gig was going to El Segundo, where the Raiders trained in the spring, in the off season. And he goes, your job is to get Al Davis on the phone. I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
And so I'm like, I'm never going to be able to get Al Davis on the phone. okay, I'll try to figure something out. And so it was coming down rain, and I had my cell phone, and this was 1994, 1995. And I walked into the campus of El Segundo, trying looking for Al Davis's office, and I get into this room, and they said, and there's Al Locasal, which was Al Davis's guy, and everybody knew Al Locasal. He held everything for Al, and so I put him on the phone with Mason Ireland. They had a good time talking, and I did just bits like that in the street that were fun, and they decided to hire me on as their morning show producer for $20,000 a year. And they said, you're also the promotions coordinator as well. So you have to handle promotions for the LA City area. And I did it because I was in. But Steve Mason, I credit a lot with my career, because he took me to his next job at CBS Radio, where I covered, I did an entertainment show for him, the Olympics in 1998 in Nagano, Japan. And then we all got back together again in 2004 in the second reincarnation of the Mason Ireland show on 710 ESPN. He was huge for me in my career. And so, yeah, and John Ireland, him and John are like my radio, my media dads, basically. Oh. And I've always remained very close with them. They're very, very close to me. Mason was in my wedding.
Wow. That's a really good story. David, I really enjoyed that. And I think a lot of people are really going to be inspired by that. You did spend a couple of years with Fox Sports Radio. And when you think about those years, what comes to mind, your experiences that you can take from those times than you use today, or good memories, fond memories that you recall?
I'll tell you what, I'll never forget. We had about 5 producers basically in the same room that were all getting guests for different shows on Fox Sports Radio. And it was such a great relationship that we're friends to this day. I get chills just talking to these guys, like about Eric Peterson, Mike Coover, Sam Batesh, me, Harry Gore. All of us, we were all going after a lot of the same guys. In the sports landscape. But we were, it was like 5 starting pitchers. Wow. That we were all rooting for each other. We were all just like, hey, Eric, that was a great get, man. That was good. And we all rooted for each other, and it was a fun time. I enjoyed, I was there for 2 years. I started working with interns there, and I still talk to the people that intern on the show to this day. Larry Brown, who has a website. Larry Brown.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Online. He was my intern at Fox Sports Radio, and he's doing so well. And just and I worked on the Kylie and Boom show, the Steve Zabin show, Jim Daniels show, JT the Brick a little bit, and it was a fun time.
Speaking of fun, when you had that second go round with ESPN Los Angeles, you had so many different responsibilities over those, 10 years that you were there, from like 2004 to 2014. What are some of the most enriching parts of those 10 years?
I'll tell you what, we sort of just did what we wanted. It was radio is I loved radio, and I love TV for so many different reasons. But when I love radio, number one, the autonomy. It's like, hey, you want to do something? We want to get something booked, boom, go after it. I loved the spontaneous nature of radio. There's so many memories of like just working at 710 with on La Cienega. I mean, it was Joe McDonald, Doug Krikorian were afternoon drive. We were in middays, and it was it was a fun time. It was a fun time to be in radio. We had Mason Ireland and I think we were all on the same page. I remember starting, because Pardon the Interruption started to be such a huge show. We call it, I started Big Show Interruption, BSI, or I'd ask, and this was 2005. I'd ask Mason and Ireland some questions, and they'd react. I didn't give them the topics beforehand. They would just react with their opinions. And it was a nice break of the show to talk about the different topics that we're not spending an hour on, but just and that's become such a big part of radio now. Just having those little benchmarks where you get to know Steve and John, not just for their sports knowledge, but for who they are as people and what their opinions are, about life. And I think Mason Ireland was amazing. They reinvent themselves every year. It seems like they keep on going. Since 1994, they've been on the air together. Wow. A little break here and there, and we all worked at Fox Sports Radio, but we're all working for different shows. And then we took a break in, I think, 2007, and then we all got back together again in 2008. But we had an amazing working relationship where we just had fun. We just had fun with each other and laughing. It was just laughing, and that's when I think the audience can sense. It's such an intimate medium, radio, because a lot of times when you're listening to the radio, think about it, you're alone.
Sure.
A lot of times people watch TV together, but they listen to the radio alone.
That's a good point.
And it's a special relationship that the listener has with the hosts, because they feel like they know Steve and John. Steve and John are like friends to them. They are friends. And because for 4 hours every day or 3 hours every day, they talk to you like you're right in the room. It's an amazing, intimate feeling that listeners have. And what happens is the listener uses their information. They'll repeat Steve and John's opinions to their friends. And so they're creating sort of like a social currency that they use, and that they trust Mason and Ireland because they feel like they can help me in my social circles. And basically they're just friends talking. And it's a great, I love the radio relationship with the fan.
David Singer, talent producer at NFL Network. I'm Bryan Fenley, an anchor at Fox Sports Radio. The final question I have for you, David, is speaking of that unique relationship that you mentioned with how the fans, they feel like they're friends connected with the hosts. How do you feel in the trust that comes with that? How do you feel like your role, even to this day, how you've been able to master it when it comes to that trust, when it comes to the way you have such respect and such a pedigree around the industry, where you are able to have such a power to bring in people from all walks of life to showcase on different shows? What is it about what you are all about that makes it so easy for anybody to say, oh, David Singer's reaching out to me, of course I'm going to do this?
I think the trust that comes with the host and people you work with is how much, and the producers, is just busting your butt
Yeah.
I mean, really show, I think I've been in this business so long and I never stop hustling. I never stop. I never feel in my heart that, you know what, I'm good. I'm, I never feel like, you never rest on your laurels. Never feel like I've got plenty of cachet in this business. I can let up a little bit. I always feel the need to show producers, talent, that when I'm working with them, they're going to get everything they got. I love the yeses. I love getting yeses from reps and from players and from guests. And I will bug the rep or the person until they tell me no. Like it's tough to be like when a rep, when you go out to a rep, you know, you email them, they don't answer, and then you text them, and I go, I mean, just listen, I understand this might not work out, might not fit with your schedule. Just let me know so I can move on. You know,
Sure.
just get me to, I want to get me to an answer. And a lot of times reps or players don't want to say no. They just feel they don't want to say no a lot of times, and they'd rather not say anything sometimes. And I think it's natural. I think I do that sometimes too as well. But I try to get a commitment, either yes or no, so I can move on. You can get rid of me easily. Just tell me no. but I like to sell the fact, you sell the show. It's salesmanship too. What talent, being a talent producer is, you're selling your product, you know. And my main thing is, a lot of times when I believe in the show, I tell people, you're gonna love this show so much, you're gonna come on again. You're gonna want to come on this show again because of your experience you're gonna have. And I think after a while, you know, when they agree, it's great. And I like to be able to, and keeping producers up to date. It's like when producers have to say, hey, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? Just letting them know, giving them status updates so they realize that they're not in the dark with what's going on as far as guests. So keeping them abreast about what you're going after, what are the expectations they have. So that's what I try to do, is most of all. And they know they're getting someone that's going to just continually fight for their show, continually fight for them as a host. And I think that's where the trust comes.
I like it. And I like the fact that you consider yourself an air raid quarterback, because I can see how that relates to your job. David Singer, talent producer at NFL Network, had a distinguished career in radio as well. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. David, thanks so much for a couple moments of your time. I love the storytelling, and I think it's super important for people to understand the amount of work that you put into your job and the success you've had over your career. And you do it, when you talked about it, you did it with such humility and with so much gratitude that no wonder people enjoy working with you. Thanks again so much.
Thank you, Bryan.